Welcome to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with DoneDeal Cars, Ireland's favourite car buying website with the widest selection of cars from certified trusted dealerships. Most Irish drivers find their next car on DoneDeal Cars. Hello, Mark.
Hello from Dublin, Paddy, and greetings to you down in Cork. Some Cork people will be disgusted. I'm drinking Yorkshire tea, and
Right.
I'm having where is the wrapper? For anyone who's ever got a Logan Air flight, you get a complimentary Tunnocks caramel wafer bar.
My God, you've gone all Scottish. Tunnocks are Scottish, I presume. They're very good, though.
Very good.
They're borderline stale at all times.
Yeah,
but
that's a good way
the
of describing
right side
it.
of stale.
They're
just on the cusp of stale.
There's a bit of a chew.
Yeah, it is. It's probably the long shelf life. They're probably, last for years and years and years. But
so I think they're doing some advertising with Radio Nova at the moment. So there was boxes of them in there. So I may have brought an 8-pack home.
You may have acquired some. They are very good, though. You make me want to have one of those now. Actually,
yeah. Fly Logan Air.
The weather here in Cork is absolutely foul. I haven't left today, and I don't know if I will because it's miserable out. It's blowing sideways.
It's a bad day.
Wind and rain. So yeah, not a good day to be driving either. So yeah, people need to be careful out there.
We have Amy to thank for that.
So what's been going on for you for this week so far? Any travel? No
travel. No. VW Amarok V6, although it's kind of a Ford. Tesla Model Y Performance. What a quick car. Right. More 911 issues.
Well, look, let's start with the cars anyway. I mean, I've just been in the Opel Grandland EV, which is sitting outside, which is a car that has wheels and steering wheel and it's functional.
Yeah,
it's like I was never in the previous Grandland, and I don't think it was necessarily the most remarkable car ever, was it?
No. It was just they seem to sell quite well in Germany. My German neighbour has a 2018 one that I helped her buy, and it's still going strong.
Well, this one is the new EV version, and the EV is the cheapest way to get into a Grandland, under 40 grand. Not bad stats, 77 kilowatt hour battery, 73 of which is usable. I have been getting pretty decent fuel economy, or EV economy, should I say, from it on my up and down, endless drives up and down to Cork. 15 or so kilowatt hours per 100
That's all right.
In good conditions, which is pretty all right. And definitely, and I was DoneDeal's office in Dublin to Ballycotton on one go, which is pretty decent. So yeah, I was happy with it from that extent. I had watched your video, as I always do, but and I concurred with a lot of things you'd said about the PHEV version, and as in the seats are incredibly good. And I know it's maybe you may be clutching at straws sometimes when you're talking about seats, but yeah, really good. Like, the incredibly comfortable, an amazing array of lumbar adjustments in that car.
Yeah, so they're AGR rated seats, so they're doctors, orthopedic people, back doctors, and they all get into a room, I assume, once a year, and they go, "Ooh, that's very comfortable. Yes, suits you, sir." So look, you might say, you're clutching at straws, but it is also a huge part of the time where you spend in the car, the seat. So yeah, why not talk about the seats being comfortable?
It is, and for me, certainly doing that journey or a longer spin, I would be very drawn to that car if I was sitting outside versus some others, because of the fact that it does what I needed to do range-wise, and it's so comfortable. The couple of gripes, I sent you a little video last night of some of the quality of the trim, and which is literally coming off of my hand. So that wasn't brilliant, but yeah, you can see some areas that are, there hasn't been great quality applied, but in others, then it's really, really good. So it's a slightly confusing car. Is it the best in the segment? Absolutely not. It's one of the others, the category of others, but for some people, and who want a big family car, because it is pretty big, 550 litres boot space. We actually put it against an Aria during the week, with Dave O'Keefe. Now he had the Nismo one, which was 25 grand more expensive, but yeah, bigger boot and didn't charge at half the speed on AC.
And as a man who has a GTR, how did the Nismo work out for him?
He wasn't keen on it being named a Nismo.
Right, okay.
That was a bit of a
sacrilege.
He wasn't too keen on that, but yeah, it was an impressive looking thing, the Nismo version. But judging by the front, I don't know if you've seen it yet. I would hate to have any sort of accident in it. Repairing the front of that car would be mildly expensive. It's just all looks like
colour?
one piece. Yeah, it was instead of a grey, dark grey colour, cool looking car. And video will be up later in the week. But yeah, like fortune of a car for what really? Do you know what I mean? To go 4 seconds quicker than a white Grandland,
My initial reaction with the Grandland was I got to drive it on the international launch. I drove the hybrid first, 1.2, a little bit underwhelmed maybe in terms of power, but it's half a ton lighter than the electric version.
That's quite significant.
That is significant.
I just want Opel to do something different. Like I haven't seen the Frontera. I don't know where the Frontera sits. Where does that sit in the story?
So, well, they're squeezing 7 seats into it, which I can't understand. I know there's a Citroen. Right. There's a Citroen C3 with 7 seats as well. It just seems madness. So yeah, it falls below the Grandland. Obviously, it's significantly cheaper if the prices that I heard a year ago, nearly when I drove it. I did get a lovely Opel Frontera sweater out of the test drive. It's very cool. Very cool.
I wish you had it on today now for this.
It's pity. Yeah, it's pity. So, in terms of size, I definitely want the Grandland over it.
Yeah, look. For some people, I wouldn't rule this car out because for certain people, it's going to really suit. If you want space, size, really comfortable seats, you do fairly long distances. Now, there's a bigger battery. I don't know if they have any plans to bring that one, but that must be really impressive because the 77/73 is pretty decent in terms of how it returns. It's kilowatts. So yeah, from that regard, pretty good. In terms of another family car though, which is slightly more powerful, is the Tesla Model Y Performance, which you've been driving. Do you have it at the moment?
No, I literally had it for half a day. The deal was we're doing longer drives, but at the moment, can you just take it for a few hours? So I did, and it really was a few hours because I was on the radio at 3:00 that day. So got it at about 10. Sorry, got it at 11. Gave it back at 1:30, 1:45.
Yeah, Dave O'Keefe had it this week. Addition of a stalk, has that happened yet? Or is that something that they are bringing along? I've seen some headlines this week that they're adding an indicator stalk to the Tesla Model 3.
So the new Model Y has always had the stalk,
right?
That the 3 doesn't have currently.
All right, so it's a 3 is getting it. Okay, very interesting. So is it as bonkers as we would expect it to be?
It's very, very fast. I'll give you some of the official words. So there's 10% less drag. There's 64% less lift. That's not downforce, lift. So it's a better balanced car. There's increased stability with 50% less drag from the tires. The suspension is adaptive in a sense that you can press a button and it goes from standard to firm. Don't think of it like dynamic chassis control. There's no soft middle bit or anything like that. It just goes from firm to firmer. In some ways, I think it's actually a step backwards in the suspension because the new Model Y, they did so much work on it. It's really, really good. And now to cope with that power, it's just a much more firmer setup of car. But if you want to go ridiculously quick in a straight line, it has the full autonomy. Like the car is capable of driving you to work while you sit there eating your cereal if you want.
Right.
Obviously, we don't have that legislation here currently,
but technically it's in there.
That car can do that.
And
lovely looking wheels, big bright red calipers on it, carbon fiber puked all over it. The interior, the screen has a 1 inch bigger screen with better pixels, so it's even sharper. Although there was nothing wrong with the standard Model Y screen. It's
still an enormous boot, which is one of those things that people overlook with the Y. Like the boot is over 1,000 liters.
So they measure from they also do some funny tricks where they measure it from the floor to the ceiling. But again, that is a
Funny
car that will technically be able to take 7 seats. So
Yeah.
gives you an idea. Yeah, loads of room. Then you got that huge big bin underneath for space as well. You've got a frunk.
And is there a point to this car?
Is there a point to the same question of, is there a point to a hot hatch version of a normal hatch? Is there a reason for a Nissan Aria Nismo? Why not? Some people, very probably small numbers of certainly of a Nismo, I'd say there'd be considerably more Model Y performances sold than Aria Nismos. I think it's just for people that just want that extra whatever.
Why not if they want it? I mean, I suppose my point is that the standard Y is a quick car that handles well and, feels like, if that was out in the 90s, it would be a hyper car. So, the fact is that, do you need to go that step now? I haven't looked at the pricing, but is it much more than the
so it's 67 all in, but
it's not a lot, is it really?
Well, it truly is supercar performance.
Money,
like one of the stipulations from Tesla in terms of taking it for a test drive was you can't drag race the car when you have it, because people are obviously looking at Matt Watson, where he takes on GT3s and all kinds of mad stuff in an electric car, and to a point properly smokes them. But if that isn't the real reason or the main reason, sole reason for you having a car, then just get a Y.
Yeah. Yeah, but look, it's nice it exists, and you know, how many supercars can bring you 500 kilometers on a full tank for that price?
That's it.
Absolutely zero.
And charge it for a tenner overnight at home. So yeah, you just, and 120 euro road tax. Like,
and at the other end then, Mark, the other end of the sort of utilitarian scale is the Volkswagen Amarok.
Yes.
Is it a Ford Ranger now? Has it morphed into something rebadged Ford Ranger?
So most people, I'm sure, know Volkswagen did a deal with Ford. Volkswagen said, can you make us a transporter? They said yes. And they equally said, can you make us some electric cars, the Explorer and the Capri? And VW said yes. And also part of that trade-off was the Amarok, which is also a Raptor or Wildtrak or Ranger, whatever you want to call it. So it has a V6 engine. It's for all intents and purposes, it is a Ford switchgear. It doesn't have a wet belt, obviously, in the V6.
Thank God.
Is some reassurance. But
who's getting the better deal out of this, Mark? Ford or Volkswagen?
Well, Volkswagen, to me, and I'm only going by the internet, which isn't always the truth, have totally burned their bridges with the diehard transporter fans, all the T's that went before it, that people love, and, you know, build quality, reliability. Their VW are dead to them, if you believe the internet.
Yeah.
Have Ford...
sales will figure that out, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose Ford were able to fast track. I mean, if they didn't have this deal with VW, Ford probably wouldn't even have the cars that they have on sale now. They'd still be talking about it. It's a bit like the Metro for Ireland, Dublin. I think Ford possibly have done better out of this.
I would have thought so, for sure. I didn't want to give any Volkswagen bias there, but I would have thought that it's a much better deal for them. Okay, look, on its own merits, how did you feel about the Amarok after a few days?
It's a very capable vehicle. It rides pretty well on the road for those people who, you know, the Pan America version, which I have, is more of a lifestyle vehicle, really. It's a nice kind of green colour, nice alloys. The Goodyear tyres on it, yeah. So it's a two-wheel, rear-wheel drive vehicle until you want to make it four. And there's a couple of wet mornings this week where I was trying to get the power down. And that's a tail-happy bus.
Yeah, well, those things generally drive a little bit better with laden with something.
Yeah.
Just find an old fridge or something at the back and just stick it in.
There was a few warnings where I put it into four-wheel high just to kind of get the power down on the wet roads on the school run. It seems a bit overkill. But yeah, look, if you really like VW and you've already always had them, I can see why you'd buy it. otherwise, why would you not buy a Ranger Raptor? It's a very strong engine in terms of it's very powerful. I've no doubt will tow a lot of stuff. I actually, if I had a trailer, I would have towed my 911 back to the workshop this week with it. I think that could have been an interesting test, but I don't have a trailer.
That would be a very good test, actually. Yeah,
it's ridiculously thirsty, both the 911 and the Amarok, and yeah, it has power in the rear for tools if you want. Very comfortable, heated seats, CarPlay, you name it. It's a luxury.
Perfect urban annoyer of people.
Although I did have to drop my wife and her friend to the airport, and when I pulled up outside her friend's house, she said, "All right, Alf Stewart." Now, I don't know if Alf Stewart has ever driven a ute in Home and Away. Maybe he did in the early days. I don't remember him doing it.
He has. I'm just looking here on DoneDeal Cars. The cheapest Amarok is 14.5 grand.
That's a VW one.
Yeah, the cheapest, like going back a few years, 2015, even 2013 are like 15,950. They keep their value pretty well, actually. I really liked the early one. I just thought it was pretty raw and pretty basic, and it was a lovely thing.
Yeah, there was a lovely matte blue colour you could get in it back in the day.
Yeah, and the 3-litre V6 TDI as well, of course.
Yeah, no, I've driven them. You know, I'm lucky enough that I have access to some forest car parks that I shouldn't have access to, shall we say. I've done tests, not this vehicle, but in the past with Amaroks, the likes of Dollymount Strand, where you could drive further into it. I've properly sprayed these things in mud. They're very capable things.
That's what they're for, exactly. Right, well, look, we were talking briefly there about used car prices, and we had a report out earlier this week, which is the DoneDeal Cars Price Index. And it's a report I had obviously been aware, but now I'm knee-deep in. And there's a couple of main headlines. The first is about used EV prices, which are stabilising. Now, they were a bit of a shit show for a while, really. They especially 2021, 2022 or so, prices were really strong. There was a little bit of a shortage, especially in 2022, chip shortages, the likes of that. So you couldn't really get them, and in a lot of cases, there was waiting lists. I remember for cars like the Enyaq, and they were going for list or above list, and there were crazy values secondhand. Now, that all changed radically then, and even last year they were falling by about 13%. So the expected value of them was 13% less than they should be. So what we're starting to see is that is recovering, and it was the drop this year is at the moment is only minus 2.8%. So we're potentially not far away from a stage where the residual values are stable. Very, very close to that. And that is a point which, there's a number of reasons for it. I would say, and I think our economists would say as well, that it's down to the OEMs stopping messing around with the pricing of them. Because you'll remember some of the massive discounts. Tesla were doing it, then other brands had to follow suit. So you were seeing 5, 8, 10 grand wiped off the new value of, or the new price of a car, which subsequently immediately has an effect on the used price. That has kind of stopped, and you don't really see a huge amount of that anymore. I know Volkswagen have a bit of an action on the ID7, but it's not. It's more of a purchase contribution rather than wiping money off the price, and they're two different things. And I think they're two important distinctions, because just saying, okay, it was 40, now it's 30. Has that horrible effect. So on that side, we are starting to see some good news.
And this contribution, so basically if you buy an ID7 at the moment, you can get up to €7,000 towards it. So it's obviously for a limited time, I assume, but that then is trying to not undermine the used market.
Yeah, so you're going in, I'd imagine it's the case if you're going in with your existing car and you might have got 30, you're getting 37. against your new one versus taking the money off. And I think that's probably where some of the mistakes were made, is that they just, and the market can't absorb that. It's suddenly, well, what is the value of a 3-year-old?
Yeah, but
well, it's got to be less,
It's like at the start of the financial crash, 2008-9. Why would you have bought a house even if you had saved your communion money, because you're waiting to see where the actual price lands? That was going on with EV sales as well. So, if you were a customer, you'd be kind of going, well, I'm going to wait and see here.
Yeah, exactly. And look, so that's some good news. In other areas, though, the standard ICE cars, so your petrol, diesel, hybrid really stable, 1.7% increase in the values of those. But it's at the lower end increase, yeah. So it's above and above the expected value of the car as the years go on, relative to inflation, the like. So, but the market that's really growing in terms of those values to speak of is our sort of older 2010 Volkswagen Golfs, Audi A4s, things like that. Someone is going to have to pay almost 8% more for one of those than they would have last year.
Wow.
And that's an interesting figure, because a lot of people who are buying in that segment maybe are starting off, especially if it's something like a Golf or Polo or the likes of that. And it's getting harder for those people to get into the segment because those values are going up increasingly. And you sent me a really interesting video during the week from, what was it, Scottish Car Clan, was it?
Yeah. And it was just about the sort of this sweet spot of era of car where they're still complex. They still have lots of safety equipment, but they're still something you can work on. You don't have to have the smallest hands in the world to get into I mean, that was one of the first signs I remember when you couldn't even change a headlight bulb anymore in a car because it was so tight. I remember having a Mark IV Golf and we tried to upgrade the headlights in it. Whole bumper, everything had to come off just to change the bulb unit. So, yeah, this era of cars is sort of somewhat workable on by any mechanic. They're reliable. They're not full of software. They obviously do have, levels of software, but not by compared to today's standards. So, and again, if people do think the end is nigh for internal combustion engine cars, some people will want one of these types of cars, as you say, a 2015 Golf. That maybe in years gone by, it'd go 10-year-old Golf. Who's interested in that? But now, people are.
No, and I think a lot of people are being drawn to the simplicity of these cars, as well as the ability to tamper with it yourself or tinker with it yourself. Lots of people won't do that, but the fact is they don't have the crazy ADAS systems. There's fewer bings and bongs. The buttons are buttons. So there are a lot of people who are going to be drawn to those cars, and I would suspect that the value of those cars is going to really keep very strong for a while because of that. And certainly that video you sent me, they were talking about, the likes of 10-year-old RAV4s, Honda CR-Vs, and the likes of those really strong because, and the point what I really liked in the video, I'm sorry, the man's name escapes me, but I think we'd be great to go around and get him on sometime. But it was about the fact that all of the years of development had gone into culminating in that point where almost, peak petrol and standard diesel cars, and that since then those cars maybe have been left on the shelf a little bit as all the development work has gone into petrol, plug-in hybrid, etc. So those cars were at the finest of their time, really.
I'm just trying to find this guy now for anybody who wants to watch the video, and he's a Scottish guy. I love how Irish people and Scottish people always understand each other. It's like when we're on holidays together or sometimes at work events for me, and there's English people there as well. We can just speak faster to each other and I turn each other apart. Scottish Car Clan is the guy's channel. I actually don't know what his name is, but he's just a knowledgeable guy and
incredibly eloquent.
If you just type
presenter
in,
as well.
Time is running out to buy reliable, repairable cars, you'll see his video. It's only 10 minutes long, and it just hits a lot of good points.
Yeah, exactly. Total aside as well, I don't know if you've seen it, I'm sure you have, Dave Corbally, shout out to him, who's been working on Bob Flavin's car.
Yeah. Bob it's a Leon, isn't it? That Bob bought from you.
Yeah, Bob was at Leon a long time, and Bob has obviously gone through his cancer treatment and has been fighting like an absolute warrior. But he had put up a video where he was digging out his old Leon and was trying to look for some parts and stuff like that. But it was taken up by Dave Corbally from Service Stop, Dave, who's been on the show here, and the response to it has been incredible. So Dave took the car in and put a shout out, and various suppliers sent tires and parts, and this is going to be like a showroom concours version of the Leon, and the outpouring of real affection for Bob in order to get this car back on the road is really, really touching.
Bob is in
Serbia.
Serbia, yeah. He's there right now. I was
doing
talking
something
to him
for someone else, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing some charity thing. Yeah. I was talking to him 2 nights ago, and he was giving out about the price of beer on the flight over there. It was €8 for a can of Heineken or something. So he's his usual self. But no, it's nice to see, and it's lovely to see communities and car communities kind of coming together. I think Bob has a Volvo estate as well.
He's V70. He was doing some work on that himself as well, but the Leon had been dormant for quite a while, so that's great to see it. And look, Bob has done so much for charities, Bumblebee and the likes of that.
Yeah,
so
he has.
I think all of this is just coming back around, deservedly so for him. So it'd be great to see that car back in the road.
Yeah, and thanks very much to Dave and everyone else involved in doing that. I know. Well, Bob sometimes will be comfortable talking about these things, and other times he kind of isn't. So, as two people who know him well, I'm sure he's very, very appreciative of it.
Yeah, no, he is. He's been posting that, saying he can't get over the reaction to it. So, but yeah, we'll be looking forward to hearing more on that story in the coming weeks. We'll take a quick break, and then after the break, we'll come back and talk about the end of the Focus ST.
Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with DoneDeal Cars, Ireland's favourite website for car buying. With more certified trusted dealers than anywhere else, you're sure to find the right car for you on DoneDeal.ie. Ain't that the truth?
Well, yes, I would have to say that for sure. And it is the truth. I wouldn't lie to you.
It is. So, sad week this week. First of all, they are preparing to kill the Ford Focus. Last cars will be produced in November. But this week, the last ever Focus ST rolled off the production line.
Yeah, it is a sad week for that. I mean, look, if you've driven both the Fiesta ST and the Focus ST, and two amazing cars. The final one rolled off the line in Germany on the 26th September, and it followed Ford's decision back in 2023. Now I think it is this stage to can the Fiesta ST. ST now lives in a sort of a trim line almost. There is a version of it for the Puma, but it's such a shame.
You need an ST3, and also you need to stop sending me cars, Corrado G60s, Fiesta ST3s for 13 grand.
Well, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, the ST. I remember the first ST I drove, and it was the first Focus. It was the ST 170.
170, yes, yeah. That was €35,000, and I know this because I was toying between a Mark IV Golf GTI and the Focus ST. And it had the wheels and that blue colour, and I test drove it out at South Dublin Ford, and the residual. I was just so nervous of the residuals versus a Golf GTI, and I think I probably made the sensible choice.
You did, even though it was probably a better car than the Golf at the time. Mark IV wasn't their finest hour by any means.
Yeah, it was comfortable. It wasn't really a GTI.
It was a GT rather than a GTI though. Yeah, ST170, 2-litre, naturally aspirated, 170 horsepower, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, just under 8 seconds, 7.9 seconds. A lovely thing, but absolutely wiped out by what I feel, and I'm a little bit biased because of my age, was the best one, which was the Mark II. 2.5 litre, 5-cylinder from a Volvo.
No, it was. The seats, that was like if the Mark V was VW's return to form in the GTI, not really comparable because it wasn't around as long, but that second gen Focus ST was the Recaro seats, the orange colour.
Yeah, it was either an orange or blue.
The blue, the wheels, that was a cracking car.
So it took another second off, 6.8 seconds, 225 horsepower, 320 newton meters of torque. But that engine was brilliant. And those things are like hen's teeth now. And I think they're a bit of a future classic.
Yeah, definitely.
Really, really good car.
The Mark 1 Focus RS was the car you wanted from the Mark 1. That was a €50,000 car at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, RS was another ball of wax, but this thing was a slightly softer and albeit more accessible, because the RS was heavy duty, heavy insurance, heavy everything, very likely to have your house broken into to be robbed. But the ST was sort of a little bit back from there. Third generation, I don't know. I haven't driven many of the later ones, so full disclosure, maybe you did, but we're starting getting into the EcoBoost engine. So 2-litre EcoBoost in the Mark IIIs, which is 2012 to 2018, 252 horsepower. Mark IV was a 2.3 EcoBoost, 276 horsepower, and there was actually a diesel as well in the Mark IV.
Oh yeah,
which was 190 horsepower diesel. I did try and find out today how many we have done in Ireland.
Okay,
but I failed, Mark.
Okay, you failed.
Because I just couldn't get the answer.
So you asked the right people, they just couldn't find the numbers.
I did, I did. And
I'd imagine it's small. I mean,
I would imagine it was small. Like I did, by contrast, I asked Martin in Volkswagen about the GTI.
We don't even need to put in his surname. We've mentioned him so often.
Yeah, it's just Martin now.
Just Martin.
So Golf GTI and Or represent 5% of all Golf sales. So circa 120 cars a year. Or alone is 0.8%, so around 20 cars a year. So bear in mind, Martin Cardiff was on a plane when he answered this, and he answered me in about 0.8 of a second.
Yeah.
I don't have the Ford figures.
So you didn't have to go looking for the figures. He had the figures up here.
He just had them. Well, I would imagine he had them in his head because that's who he is.
By the way,
if not, they were very quick.
If anyone listening is looking for a Golf 4, it could be gone by now. But 2 days ago, Beshoff Motors in Howth in Dublin posted a 3-door lapis blue or manual,
right,
for 25 grand. It's either 2017 or 2018. 3-door manual. Just saying. I don't know. It looks clean as well. And he was looking for one of them. Even on that, go on.
Sorry, go on. No, I suppose my point in asking Martin about this was well, Volkswagen are continuing on with this, and the numbers are respectable. And Ford have apparently said that this car didn't make any money, etc., etc. But it's a bad sign from Ford, who would are not making very interesting cars these days.
No, but I will say VW probably have an idea of where they're going right now. I don't know if Ford do. Maybe Ford just have a load of money tucked away somewhere, and they're just waiting to see where the whole next few years go. And then...
Yeah, it looks a little bit like Europe isn't a major priority for them.
Yeah, that's an understatement, yeah. The same as Honda.
Like you can see... Although, I had the Puma electric last week, and I really liked it. Now, it was a little expensive, but I really warmed to that thing. And the UK, it's absolutely flying. They can't get enough of them.
Yeah. It's also getting the biggest grant, though, in the UK as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. It is getting that. Interestingly enough, I wonder, would that work here, the salary sacrifice? Because Simon did mention it this week, and I know we're going off track a little bit, but Simon did mention it this week. They were saying that calling the government to introduce that as part of their budget, the budget proposals. They were saying, look, why not? So I was looking at it. It wasn't really on my radar, but essentially it's the bike to work scheme for EVs.
Yeah,
it's your employer can you can nominate a contribution that your employer takes pre-tax, and it goes against the leasing of an EV. Now, obviously, we're not very advanced in leasing in Ireland, whereas they are in the UK. So you're never owning that thing, but you would essentially have the use of it for any given amount of time, including a charger and all those other bits and bobs. So yeah, like we have on Bike to Work, where you get your fancy bike and pedals, but this is on a grander scale, and you don't get to keep the thing at the end of it. Do you think that would work here? Do you think there'd be any appetite for that?
I think it's worth trying. I don't know how well the bike to work scheme has done. I did it myself. I know plenty of people that did. Would a car be any different? I don't know, but I think we have to try something. We can't keep doing what we're doing, because while the numbers are slowly increasing, our targets just aren't being met. So we have to incentivize. I think that, and also some way to claim back, VAT or whatever on. I just don't know. We as long as we continue to make diesel fuel an attractive offering for businesses in this country, nothing's going to change. So why not?
And look, certainly for this budget coming up, and it's later this week, actually, or next week, they can't do anything to hurt the sales of EVs, because there's some momentum. It's starting to build up. We're seeing decent values used. We were talking about they can't start messing with this again. Now, I know they're concerned because their VRT take is down. They had a report out during the week that showed that there's been a drop because of everything going towards EVs, plug-in hybrids and the like. So at some stage that is going to shift, but now is not the time to do it, I think.
No, and let's not forget that VRT is an anti-European tax, and anything that puts the Irish government under the spotlight in terms of hitting targets, and maybe someone going, well, why aren't they hitting targets, is a good thing. That said, VRT on electric vehicles is quite insignificant compared to other things. They could increase the road tax on them. It's 120 is very, very low. I'm not saying I want this to happen, but I'm sure if you were in the Department of Finance, you would be looking at all these kind of things. But that will then play right into the hands of people like my father-in-law, who has said for years, wait till you see now, once everyone's driving electric, they'll find out a way to tax you on that fuel as well. They'll know when you're charging an EV at home, and that'll be more expensive than when you're charging or plugging in your kettle. I was like, there's no way of knowing that. He goes, I'm telling you, watch it.
Well, yeah, I mean, should there be the same motor tax on a Leap motor T03 as there is on a Macan turbo?
Yeah, and as someone who is paying $18.09 a year for a car that does 1,000 kilometers a year, it's very frustrating and unfair. If you have a 2.3 ton electric SUV pulling potholes into the roads, etc., then 120 is very, very low. And, to think about Michael O'Leary and his way of thinking, for example, he thinks you should be means tested for children's allowance. If you can afford to buy a $100,000 BMW iX, then you can pay more than $120 a year road tax.
Yeah, and certainly the plug-in hybrid thing has been used and abused a little bit as well. There's plenty of people who've been importing all sorts of crazy stuff for half nothing because those emission rates are so low. So it's much easier to get in.
I know someone who has a Panamera hybrid. It's never been charged. Never.
Probably don't have a wall box even. Yeah,
don't have a wall box. I mean, I say the battery's goosed because it's never been charged. But they were able to, get it in for the cheap tax and cheap VRT.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, look, I mean, we were talking about the Ford ST, the Fiesta ST, just looking at prices of those. So we didn't find out how many new ones were sold, but there's about 15 of each on the classifieds on DoneDeal Cars anyway at the moment. Yeah. So the cheapest.
The Mark II really is one you've pulled up a gem there. I've really forgot about that.
Yeah. So there's 14 Focus ranging from 13.5 for 2013 to 56,900 for a 2025 model. So there is a 2025 model in Spirit and Sandyford. And it's to heap of money. But that would be an interesting one for you to go and do a nice little video.
I think I need to talk to our friend Lee, and see if they need Focus ST.
Spirit Sandyford, 56,900. Now, in terms of the Fiesta ST, there's about the same amount, about 14 or 15 of them. And the cheapest is $8,000. And the most expensive is a 2022 model in Kerry, in the Ford dealership in Kerry, for
much
50 quid under 30 grand.
Now, that car was 30 grand new.
Yeah, but there you go. So that's good residuals. But that one I sent you on WhatsApp, the mount tuned one in Carroll and Roach, 182 horsepower. What a car! That would be all of the crack.
One of the best cars I've ever driven was a 2021, I think, Fiesta ST. Twin exhaust, 200 brake horsepower, absolute rocket. Noise out of the standard exhaust, lovely Recaro seats. Pretty sure it had an upgraded sound system. Just cracking little car. And in some ways, I'm not surprised someone is trying to get 30 grand for 2022, and it's ridiculous.
Because they will get it. They will get it.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's take a quick break because we need to strap in.
By the way, if you ever see a 2018-ish model 19, the guards have a few of them as well. They had a grey one, for example. So,
well, not that either of us would have anything to fear from that, but
no, of course not. Of course not. But if you ever see that kind of late teens Focus ST, assume it's the guards, and anything else is a bonus.
Right. Well, look, coming up after the break, we are going to discuss Mark's next car because it looks like the 911 might be going. Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with DoneDeal Cars, with Ireland's widest selection of cars for sale from certified trusted dealers. The right car for you is on DoneDeal.ie. So where were you this morning?
I was over in Dave O'Brien's Sportscars once again.
Your best friend.
Dave is my new
Hello,
BFF.
Dave.
He's handy for a lift, actually, in fairness to him.
That's very nice of him.
So basically...
So your days of 911 ownership, are they drawing to a close?
Well...
Maybe,
yeah. I don't want to assume anything until the money is resting in my account.
And the fat lady is singing.
Yeah.
We probably can't say that anymore, can we not?
Quick recap. Did a video. That video did pretty well. Some people wanted to buy the car off the back of said video. And as even Dave asked me this morning, he goes, did you list that car anywhere? I said, no. So there's someone very keen and they have to get first refusal. Meanwhile, during the week, someone else came out of the woodwork, some maybe down your neck of the woods, and is almost pleading with me to sell the car to him if the first person isn't interested. So one last hurdle, I suppose you could say, and something I didn't do and I would do again if I was doing it, is a pre-purchase inspection. But to be fair, I was buying the car from a sports and classic dealer, so I wasn't buying it off a randomer on his driveway. So it's a little bit of comfort there. And, you know, most of the stuff on my car that has come undone, if you want to call it that way, are just wear and tear items. So one part of the pre-purchase inspection that you can get is a bore score. Now, people who talk about bore scores are literally probably bores. But basically, you've got 6 cylinders in the majority of Porsches. Also, by the way, Dave gave me a little tour today of like 60-year-old Porsche engines. And they're just a thing, like fully opened up, resting in trolleys. And like just some of the stuff there, unbelievable.
Top-class engineering.
But when you think, that's the thing, like when you look at it, you go, okay, yeah, like he's obviously working on it, but it's a 60-year-old engine and it's there in front of you in one piece. I just think that's amazing. Anyway, so basically, the cylinder sleeve of particularly the 997, 911 was not the most durable of materials. Things like the GT3 of the same era is a much more durable liner inside it. So you've got pistons moving up and down really, really fast in an engine. And over time, with wear and tear, if you don't service them, if you don't make sure there's enough oil, you get these friction marks inside the sleeve. And basically just like, imagine you got a wire brush against a piece of metal and you just scraped it down the side. So they're like these really fine hairlines that you know,
like a scratch in a pan.
Yeah, a bit like that, right? So there's a company in the UK called Hartech who rebuild your Porsche engine, and they've kind of made a business out of this because they realized, okay, there's an opportunity here. They are doing very, very good work. They're not cheap, and the fix that they can do is also not permanent. So over time, you can get what's known as bore scoring in this particular era of Porsche. Apparently, some would say the 3.8 engine is slightly more susceptible to it than the 3.6, which is the one I have. And generally it would present itself in cylinder 5 and cylinder 6. So
how does it manifest itself if this happens?
It's just over time, but you will notice the car will smoke when you start it up. It might use excess oil. The actual tailpipes of the car might be quite black where they shouldn't really be. You know, it's not a diesel. So there's some of the kind of superficial ways of
Telltale
knowing.
signs.
You might have misfiring in the engine. There's a couple of ways. So basically, they get like a chimney sweep camera that goes into the engine. So this morning we did that, and in cylinder 6 there is some bore scoring on my car. So some people also, maybe because of the internet, are like, the car is wrecked, you can't sell it now for $5,000. It's a fixable thing. You could just change the sleeve in one cylinder, or best scenario is to just fully rebuild it. But, and this is, again, I've said this a few times, what I like about Dave O'Brien is he's never sort of saying everything needs to be done now, unless something does really need to be done now. It's always, so I said to him, okay, well, if I was keeping this car today, what would you be saying to me? He'd say, I'd leave it alone and just keep an eye on it. He said that could go for another 5 years without any problems. Just depends on the mileage. But he was very much of the view of, you have a car, a high performance engine, 147,000 kilometers. Of course, there's going to be wear and tear on an engine like that. It's not a brand new car. So
yeah. So, well, look. I mean, it's. Are you still? You're obviously in talks, discussions about maybe letting the 911 go. So, well, firstly, tell us your highlights of that car. What's it been like? I know you've posted about the pitfalls and stuff, but you've never really spoken about the unadulterated joy it's brought you.
Look, it's a brilliant car to drive. It has a couple of personalities, over 4,000 revs. It just goes wild. The cornering, the grip, the steering, they're one of the last truly analog setup steering columns. Just to look at it, to be honest with you, the first day I collected, I remember looking over the rear driver's side mirror, and just the shoulder line of the car. They're just beautiful. I think any version of the 911 is beautiful to look at. I include the 996, which always gets a hard time for people in that.
If you're quibbling, if you got to the point where you're quibbling over which 911 you think is prettier, you're doing okay. I mean, because it's easy to get jaded in the line of work, you and I are, where we do get access to lots of vehicles, and some people would kill to be able to drive a new anything, but there must be something about collecting a 911 that's yours, that you paid your own money for, and then that first day of going to bed and waking up and it's outside. Try and describe that feeling, because it must be special versus, you could have a Ferrari for a week outside and you don't care.
Yeah, no, it was special. I remember the day getting it. Got it, pretty much a year ago now today. I haven't had that many mad cars in my life, but that and sort of I remember the day I bought my M3 as well over the phone, because I was driving to Belfast, and the guy was like, so if we do this money at this price, you're doing a deal, yeah? And I was like, yeah. And then you're kind of going, Jesus, what am I doing here? Because you're getting into these cars knowing that they're not going to be cheap. They're going to be high maintenance. There's going to be bills, petrol, road tax, tires, just normal stuff. But everything is multiplied in any sort of big engine car, especially in Ireland. But that car lover in you kind of ignores all that stuff. The stuff in your head that's telling you, walk away from this. This is going to be expensive.
Well, very few of these cars are bought with purely rational thought, because I mean, not all of them are investment pieces. So once it goes beyond that, you have to start scraping the bowels of your sanity to try and find reasons why. But that's the beauty of it.
Well,
the beauty of it is,
and look, there is a bit of pain in it, but that's okay if you love cars. You're okay with that. Like I could absolutely keep this car and put the work into it, and the car would probably stand me, 55,000 euro to get everything done to it and have it, not as good as new. It would still be a 147,000 kilometer car that's cost me 55,000 euro. And would I sell that tomorrow for 55,000 euro? No. No,
No.
no.
But again,
So
not the point.
not the point, but there is, you have to know the point as well with these cars, when to cut your loss and walk away. And I, yes, I will miss it if it goes. It's only a car. There's other ones out there. I'd like to try a few other different cars anyway. I've had it for a year, and yeah, it is what it is. But you need to know when it's time as well. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So right, if it goes and it's gone on the trailer or gone on whatever on its own steam, what's next? And this is the thing you and I have been talking. There's been many a WhatsApp message over the last few days. What is in your head for replacement? Because look, this doesn't just serve a purpose of a bit of a toy for you at all. So it has the potential to be entertainment for your audience.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the problem. There's so many cars, not enough time. I have always been a VW fan. I spent a lot of my formative years in a Mark I Golf as a kid, so I've always had a thing about them. It was servicing Kenilworth Motors in Harold's Cross. So I remember the Volkswagen workshop guys all had these kind of blue, nearly like doctor's coats, big long, sort of 3/4 lengths mechanics jackets, not overalls, jackets, like Volkswagen branded, and I just always then had a thing for Mark IIs, and then E30 BMWs, and I nearly bought a couple of them. I nearly bought one for $3,000, walked away from it because of rust, and nearly bought the same car again a few years later, not realizing it, for $25,000. So they've always eluded me. This is the mad part. I've never driven a Honda S2000, but I've really kind of now looking at that. But then we were chatting last night. Again, I remember a friend of my parents, I think he worked in banking or something, in 1989 or 90, he had a silver Corrado and it was brand new. And they've always been in the back of my head. And now you've obviously got the VR6, you've got the G60s, but some of them are crazy money. You're talking like 20 sterling. They need to be minded, kept somewhere warm. There's just so many things.
Yeah, I mean that Corrado G60 I sent you last night.
It's mint.
God, it's absolutely fabulous.
And
I'm not going to tell people where it is in case someone buys it, but even the spare wheel is like, it looks like it never was touched.
People don't generally in their ads take a photograph of the inside of the wheel well and show you how clean it is. This car, it has 70,000 miles on it.
Yeah, but I've never seen anything like it. And that's 200 quid tax, 250 quid insurance or whatever it is.
Yeah, so now again, this is the problem. So you've got VRT is capped on classics at 200, but then you still have customs. Yeah. So that's the problem. But I'm sure people can tell even by how animated we're getting. Like there's just something about these cars that just, and it's even my own kids, like they get into the Porsche and they go, smell of crayons. We often joke about that, but that's even they're picking up on that. They've never heard me say that. That's just because it does smell like old crayons.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like I get the feeling you've had your time with it, you're done with it, and like I would say from someone who has driven a Honda S2000, wow, that's serious crack. I
know it's going to be a different car. The 911 is way more low down torque. I think the S2000 is like 150 pounds per foot or something. It's low, and that's at 7,000 RPM. So you really have to rev the nuts off it. But for me, that's part, like, and I know we all sound like our dads when we say this. You don't always, like, even the 911. I never really kind of drove it like a lunatic. It's just the whole thing. And for me, I think the S2000, just the proportions of it, the bonnet of it, the kind of stubby little rear on it, just.
Yeah. And the engine is wonderful.
The engine,
when it does wake up, it's something special, and it has that duality of you can pootle around town in it comfortably. It doesn't grumble, and then when you do want to let it off the leash, it does really wake up, and it's really, really interesting.
And it's a 2-liter in this part of the world. I know it's not going to sound like the Porsche does or did, whatever way we want to look at it. But again, it's okay. Like, they're only cars.
Yeah, that's fine too.
They're only cars.
So do you think by this time next week we will have a clearer picture on what's happening with the Porsche?
I'd imagine so, yeah, because it needs to be taxed at the end of this month. I got my motor tax revenue email. They don't even send you a postal thing anymore. It's all online.
Yeah, I got mine the other day. Yeah, for the up that I
reminding
forgot I
me
own.
that and it's also the worst month because if you work for yourself, you've also got your revenue bill due. Now, in my case, you've got the motor tax. So, it was a good reminder. The days you're kind of going, oh God, I'm going to miss this car. That email was actually worth getting because it was like, oh,
Like, yes,
ugh,
gone.
I'm not paying that. So, yeah, I'd imagine we probably will have a bit of a clearer picture. Sorry for kind of going on about it if I have.
No, I think people are interested in it because these are lots of people don't have this problem in inverted commas of what will I do with my 911, but there are for you, you're not a millionaire. It's not something that's going to not cost you a thought. So it's interesting to know the thought process of someone who's okay. He has worked where you've worked hard, you've got the money together, you've got this car, but then after that, what happens? And I think that's why people are pretty interested in this story.
But then equally, one of my favorite moments of this week was I took a Volkswagen Golf for a few days, 1.5 ETSI, 150 brake horsepower, R-Line version. Still a very expensive car, 45 grand. I think it does include a service pack at 1,800 quid delivery, but that's still spicy. But I did a video, not really so much about the Golf insofar as just hatchbacks and why they're not as popular as they were. And, I was able to have fun in that car, so I think that's the joy in our job, is trying to find the fun in everything. You can absolutely have fun driving the new Renault 5. Once
but
it's a good
funny
car.
looking at your page here, the sign of the times, the Model Y is twice as many views so far as the Golf. So it does tell its own story there. But it's I'm looking forward to watching the Golf one. Because again, Martin and Volkswagen had been on saying that it had been the talk of the office, that video, so they'd all been keen to watch it and enjoy it. Oh, in a good way, I think, in a positive way. Because I think the Golf is an interesting one. It's certainly we got the feeling from the Munich show that the Golf will live on. It might be ID Golf, for example. The future obviously is electric of it, but for so many people, that car has meant so much that
that's it.
They have to treat it carefully. They have, there's such a, you think of Kermit, the Mark 1 that we had in Volkswagen and you drove and everyone drove, thinking how much, that car has evolved. So they really have to be careful with the heritage and legacy of that car.
Yeah, and I do think Volkswagen are quite protective over, and they know. I don't think we're, and look, I'm sure Ford know too, but there was obviously different commercial reasons for them doing what they've done. I firmly, I don't know, have we really seen the last of some of these cars we've spoken about, like the Fiesta and the Focus? Who knows? People, there's nothing people enjoy more than a resurgence or a comeback or wait till you see what car is coming back. Look at the Renault 5 for example.
I was just about to mention Renault 5 because you can say, right, they don't make money and there's no future in them, but Renault were able to take a car which, people had largely forgotten about. The Clio was a success. The 5 was, the Clio was such a jump and evolution from the 5, and made the 5 look like a, prehistoric car. Now we might be starting to see, okay, you can have that old heritage, but you can do it in a modern way. And no one, even Clarkson, who hates EVs, loves the Renault 5 because of what it does and how it does it.
Yeah. And Hammond did a video on Drive Tribe, and he also loved it. Which,
so it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. But there was just something, and you said it last week. You're going to feel like it's a blanket around you in the Golf, and it was. The physical buttons are back. I love how as well. We all have experienced times in our lives where you're stubborn and you're wrong, but you hold your ground. And I think for VW, such a big company, such a kind of, I'd imagine a very traditionalist company in some ways, nothing changes quickly there. For them to put their hands up and go, look, we got the button thing wrong, we got the slider thing wrong, that's all back now in the car. So there's people who were messaging me going, I have a Mark 8, I really need this video to show my missus that the 8.5 is worth trading up for, So I think they did a good job of kind of going, yeah, do you know what, we got it wrong, and we're gonna ride it. But look, that video that I did about the hatchback, it could have been about anything. It could have been about any kind of hatch car, like the Focus equally. That even the 1 litre EcoBoost engine, like I really enjoyed, kind of manual gearbox with that winding it up. And there was one or two people saying, "Oh God, like, can you not get with the times?" And I don't know how. I've done like 800 YouTube videos at this stage. I've driven most of the stuff out there. I try my best to understand the electric tech and everything that's going on. That doesn't mean you can't look back every now and again,
of course,
and just say,
plus,
where are we going? Like,
the person who bought the Golf 5 years ago and bought something else, versus an equivalent EV, for example, who's happier because they have an incredibly simple car with really, really good residuals that are stable. And they know exactly what they're going to get for it when they trade it in. So there's still relevance in looking at these cars, because for a while, a lot of people are going to want them.
Yeah. And I think that DoneDeal report you mentioned earlier on is food for thought in that. You'd be kind of patting yourself on the back if you had that kind of car. The problem is, though, I'd imagine if you do, and it is getting a bit on, maybe, you've got mileage on it, where are you going to go next? Because I'm assuming that person is hanging on to their 10-year-old Golf isn't quite convinced about electric right now.
No, and look, that is a bit of a drawback, but look, I think we will see a merging of the two at some stage. The bit with the Golf that I still don't understand, and I never really asked anyone, is why ID3 wasn't ID Golf at the time. If they had made it, because the e-Golf was so good, incredibly good car, that just didn't go far enough. Yeah. So why, I wonder, did they not just say, okay, we will make an ID3 that looks a lot like a Golf, make it, the packaging changed, call it ID Golf, and I'm totally guessing, but was it because they were worried that maybe this thing isn't quite up to Golf standards, and that we're going to have to wait until it is? I don't know, because it looks that way, that they're going to change to those namings.
It was very clear in the Golf I was in, the interior is better than the ID3, and I know the ID3 interior is a little bit nicer than it was in 2021. There's a couple of thoughts, were they trying to distance themselves from Dieselgate? Were they trying to kind of do a reset and go, this is a new type of car that you're used to? Were they also doing a reset so they could kind of distance themselves from the heritage lineup of cars and not damage them if it didn't go well? I'm sure a lot of thought went into it.
Yeah, no, for sure it did, but I wonder, would they have made those decisions if they, looking back and certainly from where they are now. So interesting one to see.
So does anyone have heated storage for a classic car, and can I have it for 50 quid a month, basically? If you have the answers to those questions, please reach out to me. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I know some people who might be able to help you out, but yeah, I think that Corrado would be a good investment, but as in investment terms, but yeah, I think.
Would you be
the S2000?
It's so clean though. Would you be afraid? I mean, I was offered but before I bought the 911, the guy I know from Cork, in Cork for years and years and years, he had a 986 Boxster, 3.2 manual, guards red, 9,000 miles.
Right.
Now this thing was in a garage, a heated garage on a trickle charger in Cork. It had a Porsche hold-all sports bag that came with the car. It had everything. Now, we were talking about kind of €30,000 for it, and that was actually less than the 911, but I just couldn't do that car justice. I knew it was going to sit on a driveway in a storm like today, and that car is now in Porsche Dublin as a heritage car that they have in the showroom. So that Corrado kind of reminds me of that. The mileage is obviously higher, but it's so clean. I think you'd be terrified of driving it.
Yeah, but I feel with people who do that with those cars, they're getting as much, as if not more, enjoyment from being so particular about it than they do from driving the actual thing, because clearly they don't drive it much.
No.
So, I would free them of that. Once they've handed it over to you, you're going to give it a new lease of life, which is doing with it what you're supposed to do, which is drive it.
I know.
You're not going to be, treating it, but I think that can be a little bit too extreme as well. Because look, at the end of the day, the engineers, the designers who were making this car didn't intend it to be sitting in a trickle charge in the garage with a blanket around it.
9,000 miles.
Yeah,
9,000
to be driven. Yeah,
it was a Bellegarde.
Where's the joy? Where's the joy in that? I don't see it.
Well, I think Trevor probably did just enjoy polishing it and maybe sitting in it and making vroom vroom noises or whatever. But
best of luck. But let the next person have some fun.
Yeah. Well, look.
I would think that way with the next car. If it is the Corrado or if it is S2000, you're going to enjoy it, and that's what it's for.
I know S2000 definitely. But yeah, no. If we end up going to the UK, we'll have to go together. I'll pay for your Ryanair, and we'll drive the car back, and we'll make some videos.
For sure. And the AA who are listening, if they are, will help us if we need,
in case it breaks down. So yeah. First world dilemmas and problems, as I often say. But look, it's a car podcast, so I'm sure you're on the same wavelength. And on that note, who knows what next week will hold. So
yeah, exactly. But look, if you do want to get in touch with us, driversrepublicpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your suggestions.
Getting very, very close to Irish Car of the Year in association with Continental Tires.
I forgot about Irish Car of the Year.
So Monday, Tuesday next week, refresher drives. That's basically where the jurors drive the cars they've driven during the year. But again, just put a little recap in their head of, oh, what was that like? Oh, how was the steering this one? Oh, was the handling better in this car versus that car?
I saw a great photograph of you with cables wrapped around you.
Yeah.
I also saw you slap down Derek Heaney, who was trying to be smart with them. His was definitely worse than yours.
Yeah, 100%. So
I'm thinking Renault. I know you can't really comment. You can vote. You're going to vote. But I'm thinking Renault 5. I'm thinking Hyundai Inster. I'm thinking Dacia Bigster. But that's what's in my head for that. I think Renault 5 will win it, but I think Hyundai has to be in there with a close shout with the Inster.
I'm saying nothing.
As the head honcho, of course, you're definitely saying nothing. But when is the actual event?
14th of November at the Conrad Hotel. Simon Delaney will be our MC. I know you worked with Simon for the AA Car Awards.
Did indeed, yeah, absolutely.
So I was only chatting to Simon this morning. He's also a bit of a car head himself, so he'll be there. So you'll have to. It usually ends up in toners afterwards, Paddy. So I'm sure we can leave your name at the door.
I might get an invite this year, will I?
You might get an invite. Yeah.
What did we say? The 14th?
The 14th. It's a Friday. Yeah.
Oh, the 17th is a Friday. Is it?
November.
Oh, November. Okay. 14th. Yeah, no, I'll be there. I'll be there from late, or else I'll meet you outside.
Yeah, meet you outside. Right. Thanks for listening. See you next week.